yard just like Alabama did, but any given Saturday, baby, it can go down, and that is really good news for the Buckeyes, who I still think is the most talented team in the country. So we're going to get this thing rolling. If you guys enjoy our content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Again, I appreciate you guys for kicking it with us. Thank you. We had a nice day off yesterday during the bye week. It was refreshing to just kind of chill for a day. Plus Saturday, we generally do our post-game show, and there was no game. So, I didn't want to take you guys away from something like Texas, Georgia to talk bye week stuff that we could do tonight. So we're going to get into that. Again, I appreciate you guys. This channel has been growing like crazy. Again, if you guys could leave us a like, click subscribe, click the little alert bell, and also give us a follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or both, depending on if you're an Apple or an Android phone user. If you're on Apple, you can do both, which would be great. But again, we just appreciate you guys helping grow specifically our audio discipline, because it has been lagging far behind YouTube. So we're trying to get that up to speed. You guys have been helping us dramatically. Take your family's phones, your kids' phones, your wives' phones, have them subscribe to it. Again, all of my family members are now subscribed to my podcast because it's a simple, easy way to help us, and it's completely free. So again, we appreciate you guys all spreading the good word. That being said, gonna bring in my good friend Nevada. Very enlightening weekend. Texas kind of spit the bit. Georgia looks formidable, which is, again, it's hilarious how, in a given weekend, the perception of a team could change dramatically, because, coming into this weekend, Georgia had been smashed by Alabama at home, gave up the long touchdown at the end. Kirby Smart back to being Kirby dumb, and now he's back to being Kirby Smart again. But what did you take from this off week? Because again, I love watching Ohio State football. Obviously, it's the best, but I really like being able to watch the rest of the country intently and not really have to pay attention to an Ohio State game and say, okay, this is a team that could give us problems. This is a team that, I think, I don't see a team that I'm just absolutely terrified of this year. Obviously, Georgia has been thrown on by Alabama. I think that, if you put a gun to my head and said, who's the team that I would least want to play, I'd probably pick Georgia. But Texas is there, and Texas, they picked a bad day to have a bad day, and kind of like us, we played in Oregon and we made a couple of mistakes that hurt us and ended up costing us the game by 1 point to the number one team in the country now on the road at their place, night game, whatever. But what were your thoughts after watching college football all weekend?
Well, I learned some stuff. Like you said, it was an enlightening weekend. And I learned one of the most valuable lessons that I learned, and this is a lesson for all you fans out there, especially you fans at Ohio Stadium, is if something bad happens on the field, just start throwing stuff on the field, man. I'm telling you, you can throw cushions, chairs, bottles, whatever you can, just throw it on the field as much as you can until the referees reconsider the call, because that actually happened, and it's proved to be a very effective tool, and got Texas back in that game. It didn't prove to be determinative as Georgia ended up winning. But if something bad happens, guys, you got to do your part. At that point, that you're obligated now to just start firing stuff down on the field, because it worked. Did you see that, Mr. Barton?
That was. And the funny thing is, I was at Bottlegate when Quincy Morgan dropped the ball and the Browns ran a play, and then the officials came back. This is in, I think, like 2000 or 2001. It was literally like when the Cleveland Browns fans threw so many bottles on the field that they ended the game. And so I was at that game. And it sort of reminded me of is that. And that call was horrifically bad. It was as bad as it was like I was watching the JJ Smith call all over again. They called, a pass interference penalty on an interception where the guy gets it and he runs it down to the 5-yard line or whatever. And then there's a break because, they show the replay. It clearly is an interference. Again, I don't want to make the game slower because the game's so slow, but I don't want to get to the point where you could challenge pass interference. But that was one of the biggest no call or missed calls or whatever. No, the call was a PI, and it was terrible. But the bottles fly on the field, and there's a 10-minute delay, and Steve Sarkisian has to go down and put his hands up there and tell the students to stop throwing stuff or we're going to get penalized. And the officials huddle. And again, this is something I always say And again, I don't like being critical of Ohio State, but there's if I ran the show at Ohio State, the first thing I would do is I'd fire everybody that works in the stadium that runs the replay booth, because we never get replays like they showed in Texas. Like at Texas, they're literally showing that replay on the Jumbotron. People are going crazy. And guess who's watching it while they're standing on the field waiting for the balls to get cleaned up? The officials. The officials are watching the replay. They're saying, man, there really isn't any contact there. I mean, that really isn't a PI. Like, we should probably pick that flag up. And since there was a 20-minute delay and they showed it 7 times, because you could hear the boos just going crazy every time they showed it. Again, like you guys have all watched a lot of football. You guys have been to football games. You've seen when they show the bad call on the home team and how there's an eruption of boos and BS chants and whatever. And, again, those referees, they ended up making what I thought was the correct call. But again, that was insane that they waited 10 minutes to reverse a call that didn't have any replay component to it. And the only replay was that the stadium operator just kept replaying it. And, again, at Ohio State, we do everything as hard as possible and as dumb as possible. We never get good replays in the stadium. And I remember that from when I was a player, from when I was a coach. We don't need to show another nationwide commercial every single time there's a break. Like, if there's a close call where Ryan Day is like, hey guys, should I challenge this? If they made me the replay guy, I'm putting up every single angle to help the coaching staff. I used to look at that. I was literally in the box. I'm saying, why did we never get a good replay angle, like of a critical call? Obviously there's the TV angle, but there's cameras that we have too. We can get a little bit of a feel for, is this a waste of a challenge? Are we going to lose a timeout? Like whatever. But that was stunning. And again, it didn't, because again, imagine in an ulterior universe, if somehow Texas comes back and wins that game, that's one of the most controversial calls in the history of college football. Now again, this isn't, the 4-team playoff, 2-team playoff, but, Texas would be the clear cut unanimous number 1 today if they would have won last night. And that call literally put them, they were down 2 scores, but that put them down at the 5-yard line where they could have scored easily and kept it rolling. I don't know. It just was, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that, but it reminded me of the Browns game where, literally they had a review. It was like Quincy Morgan, they called a completion. It was clearly incomplete, clearly dropped it, but they called a completion. The Browns came out and did the hurry up thing, and they ran a play really fast, and they ran that play, and then the officials buzzed in and stopped it, and they're like, we are going to reverse this and go back and review the play from 2 plays ago, which that's not allowed. Like once you run that play, similar to what Ryan Day and Chip Kelly did on the play where Will Kazmarek had, the catch that he didn't really catch, and they called it a catch. They got up to the line and they ran tight zone as fast as possible because that would have gotten overturned, but they didn't buzz it down. So again, that was kind of gaming the system and preventing a call from being overturned that you think was a bad call, but it was in your favor. So you're trying to get that to the next play so that they can't go back and review it. So I've never seen anything like that. And Kirby Smart lit them up in the post-game shows. They tried to cheat us. And I agree with them. Like, again, I like Kirby Smart. I think he's one of the he's probably the best coach in the country at this point. But I mean, I really thought that was unbelievable. What were your thoughts when you watched that live? Like, because I've never seen any, like, if that was a call that went against Ohio State, our message boards would literally melt. But what were your thoughts?
Well, you haven't seen it before because it's never. I don't think nothing like that's ever happened. Because I am here. Can you hear me?
He's coming back in, but I've never seen something that egregious. And again, I like that they got the call right though. Again, like at the end of the day, as much as I like to complain about how slow the game is now, I mean, it's slow because we have 700 commercials every single time now. We don't have the normal number of deals. But Nevada, like, what were your thoughts when you saw that? 'Cause I'm sure that you were watching that live and you saw the craziness. But I mean, have you ever seen anything like that call?
Well, no. You brought up so many good points. I want to make sure I get to all of them. First of all, that call was not reviewable. That's not a reviewable play.
Yeah. So that's the biggest one by far. Like, that I've ever seen. You know? Yeah.
So like you can't. I mean, there's bad calls, but like you can't like just get together 10 minutes later. And if he had made the wrong call initially, then say it right away before you spot the ball or before 10,000 bottles come flying on. I mean, just everything about the way that they handled that was completely wrong. Um, it's funny when you go split screen and see the J.J. Smith offensive pass interference penalty and that done. They're nearly mirror images of each other. Uh, should have been a no call. I mean, Ohio State got screwed so badly, and I know people don't want to hear this, but we've had a lot of bad variance on some of these big games. I mean, that Clemson game where Jeff Okudah gets the strip and score, the Shaun Wade targeting, the Marvin Harrison targeting that's picked up, the first down that was never made that they go back and respot and make it. I mean, we've just had some incredible. I mean, that's just really bad luck. And then the Georgia game to have offensive pass interference called. I mean, it's really been something. And you turn even one of those three games around, and I think the perception of Ryan Day is completely different. But yeah, that was downright bizarre in terms of the way that they handled it, the way that they administered the rule, and just the way that the officials just were basically conducting themselves. But your other point, again, so many good points in your opening take there. The home field it's called the home field advantage. Okay, so how about we make it every event? Now you may go Nevada. Showing the replay over and over again on the thing may only help you 0.0001% of the time. Well, you know what? I'll take that. I'll take every bit of advantage that I can get, because even if they don't take the unprecedented step of changing the call or whatever it is, you know what? You'll more than likely get the next call, because those referees are human beings, and that's the way that it works, man. If they screw you on a call and they know that they mess up, they look up on that big board and it plays 14 times in a row, and they're like, oh my God, I just ate the cadoodle on that. That was not good. Then you know what? You'll get the next flag. It's like magic. I have watched too many sports across hockey and baseball and basketball and football. You will get the next call. And that next call may help you out, as much or more or less, but at least you'll get something. You'll get a cookie. You'll get something. But no, I think the way that Ohio State does the lack of running replay, it's almost like, I remember back when this was like a remnant of years and years ago. They asked like schools not to play the replay of controversial things on the replay board or something like that, and like Ohio State is still adhering to some memo that came out in like 1973 or something like that. And everybody else does it. Everybody else shows it. Everybody else, puts it on 4D and the ultra 8K 10,000-foot screen, and Ohio State will not show them, because I really think that they feel like somehow that's uncouth, and we got to get over that, because that nearly got Texas back in the game, and that was literally because they kept running the replay up on the screen. And that may sound ridiculous to some of you guys, but I saw it happen in real time, so I know it could happen, and I know you can influence officials. And people say, "Why do you yell at officials?" Because it works. Well, this is just like everybody yelling at the official at the same time.
Well, I mean, like, it is so funny because uncouth was the exact word that was in my head, where I'm thinking about, Ohio State. We it's like we want to be this like pretentious, like don't be mad at the officials, don't yell, don't. But again, it screws the coaches. I'm telling you, I was in that box, and there'd be times where we'd be asking, or should I challenge it? And like we're looking, and like we're looking at ESPN, which is usually 5 seconds behind or whatever, 6 seconds behind, and then we look at the replay board, it would be showing like some volleyball player or wrestler or some commercial for some roofing company or something, and I'm like, why are we not showing a replay of the play that just happened? There's a TV timeout, or I don't know. And again, I honestly think it's because they don't want to incite the fans. They don't want the fans to be nasty and chanting BS in their stadium. But it's literally uncanny. because it's not like that everywhere you go. It's like that at Ohio Stadium though, because there's times I'll be sitting in there and I'll be looking at the board and I'm like, why do we not get a replay of what just happened when it's a close call? And like I benefited greatly as a coach, like when I could see when I was sitting in the booth, because you could look at ESPN. Every booth has a TV in it that's got the game on, so you can look up at the TV and see their angles. You see it live, obviously, but when you're watching a million things, it can be quick. Usually, like for me, like I'd watch the far side of the offensive line, and Ed Warner would watch the close side of the offensive line, and we could communicate. And then I'd rewatch it on the TV. But then, like if they give another replay up on the big board, that'd be helpful. But there are a lot of times where it's like they'd either have terrible angles or they just wouldn't show anything. And I'd be like, it screws Ryan Day. Like I would be, if I ran the show, I would be team, let's help Ryan Day and the coaches be as ruthlessly efficient as possible with challenges. Because again, that if Texas comes back and wins that game, which I'm sure the SEC and ESPN and I'm sure the commissioner of the SEC was praying that they would not come back and win that game, because if Texas won that game after they did that call, it would have been curtains. They'd be the most talked about call of the season, because Texas is going to run the table, and then Georgia has 2 losses and whatever. But, I think SEC and College Football Playoff Committee, they're all thrilled that they didn't come back and win. But, the thing I know is we can beat any of these teams. Like, again, I know like Texas was the invincible fair-haired child coming into this weekend. They got dog walked at home. They gave up 7 sacks. Again, Texas's offensive line, their left tackle is supposed to be a top 10 pick. He got destroyed by Georgia's by 13. And that kid is the best pass rusher in the country. He got a sack on Paris when he was a true freshman, and Paris was a junior. So, I mean, that guy, I've known that kid for a long time. And I was like, yeah, he's different now. So, but I don't know. Like, does Georgia have holes? Yeah. I mean, nobody going into that game thought that Georgia was going to shut down Texas and 15 points. And, because they gave up 40 to Bama. They gave up the 70-yard touchdown. And again, outside the Texas game, like the home team has a huge edge. Like Alabama looks like a different animal at home than they did on the road at Vandy or on the road at Neyland Stadium. I mean, look at like Tennessee's been dog water for the last month. And then all of a sudden they show up and they play Bama in Neyland, and the home field makes a difference, guys. Again, I don't want to put too much on it, but teams are different at home. I mean, Oregon kind of slogged through the Purdue game. Alston wasn't as crazy, but the shoe, like it's a difference maker. But Nevada, let's talk about our favorite topic: Michigan Wolverines. They are exquisitely bad. They lost to Burt at Illinois at the worst stadium in the Big Ten. I was thrilled by that. It's so fun that when you project something out for 8 months and it all comes to fruition, to say that we told you so, that Michigan was not going to be very good. But what are your thoughts on our beloved Michigan Wolverines?
Yeah. I mean, when we say this stuff, you guys, it's not just born out of our hate for Michigan. Like, we're pretty analytical about this stuff. And I mean, I don't want to take too much of a victory lap, but I'm going to take a victory lap on this one, because I said that every year there's always one team that's vastly overrated by the pollsters, by the betting public, by everything. And I said, and this year it's Michigan. And when they first came out, their regular season win prop was over 9.5, meaning they would win 10 games in the regular season. And I'm like, meaning they would lose no more than 2. And I was like, there's no way. And so we literally bet that so much that Vegas had to drop the line from 9.5 to 8.5, meaning that they would only lose 3. And then we crushed that until they dropped it to 7.5. And I didn't go any deeper than that. I didn't. That's where I screwed up. I said before the season, I thought that their ceiling was 9. The best they could possibly do would be 9-3, and I thought their floor was 7-5. And now, I mean, 6-6 is pretty chalky. And when you think about their miracles against USC and against Minnesota, I mean, even put those aside, but I mean, they could easily go 5-7. They could easily lose to Michigan State. They're not going to win a road game this year. Their road games this year were at Washington, loss; at Illinois, loss; at Indiana, they're going to lose; at Ohio State, they're going to get crushed. So, I mean, how far the mighty have fallen, And the best thing about this whole thing is this proves beyond the shadow of a doubt that the cheating mattered. That the cheating mattered. That there's now there's absolutely empirical evidence that the cheating mattered. That they're no longer the second half savants that came out of nowhere. Somehow magically in 2001, they went 2-6 in 2000, and then all of a sudden in 2001 they start this magical run of second half covers, covering the spread, holding teams below their expected value. I mean, they were just unbelievable. And now they stink. I mean, now they're legitimately bad, and they've latched their start as Sharon Moore. They've signed him into a nice little juicy contract. Their recruiting is going nowhere. Their best players are tapping out. Johnson, I've heard from pretty reliable sources. They think that he's played his last play. All the players from Michigan are going to start tapping out now, and what a mess. And for Michigan fans, take solace in the fact that this is the good year. This is your last good year, because it's only downhill from here, man. So yeah, nothing makes me happier than being right on that one. And boy, we pushed all in on that. And if you're a regular on this podcast, you remember us talking about it. We talked about this, man. I'm like, guys, look at the schedule, go through it one by one. I said they'd lose at Washington when I think Washington was getting like +9 or +12 over the summer. And people are like, oh, Washington stinks. And I'm like, that is a tough place to play, man. That is you're one of the few people that actually played there, and you know what a tough place that is to play. Michigan had no chance. They had no chance again this week at Illinois, and I love them. I love them being bad, but I love more than them being bad. I love the fact that the future is so bleak for those cheaters, and that they're finally getting what they deserve.
Yeah, I when I look at where because I always kind of go through, okay, what's best case, worst case? How wrong can I be? And I'm like you, like when we're putting things out, putting statements out, like, I mean, what's the worst that can happen? And with Michigan, I'm like, you think about Ryan Day, who obviously had been mentored by Chip Kelly, had been mentored by Urban Meyer, came into Ohio State, complete infrastructure remained intact, other than the people that he wanted to switch out. Like, he got rid of Greg Schiano, got rid of Bill Davis, brought in Hafley, brought in Madison, brought in our boy from Al Washington. But so he still had Mickey Marotti, he still had Pantone, he had an incredible roster coming back. He had Chase Young coming back for his third year, and Okuda, and Damon Arnett. I mean, you got first round corners. You got the second overall pick as your pass rusher. I'm sure that there'd been inferences to go out and get Justin Fields. So get that done. Get that waiver done with Thomas Mars. Good offensive line. Go get Jonah Jackson in the portal. Shout out Stuggs. That was a Pro Bowl guard that came in the building. J.K. Dobbins returns. And you've got some good receivers. I mean, you had a good group of captains, but then you go get Garrett Wilson committed as a freshman, and you got Olave making noise. So, again, he had an entirely different infrastructure as compared to, our boy Sharon Moore, who walks into, and I said this 75 million times over the summer, 5 new starting offensive linemen, no quarterback to speak of, defense completely decimated. Again, they lost a lot of picks to the NFL draft, to the combine, whatever. Blake Corum, who's their best player, is gone. So, I just, when I look at a team, and then I look at what's his infrastructure look like. Well, he lost his whole coaching staff, and most importantly, he lost his strength coach. Those guys all went with Harbaugh because, again, not only did they want to they wanted to get out before this nuclear strike came. They didn't want to go through this terrible season, because those guys knew if they thought that they had some sort of 20 starters returning and a chance to repeat and do the thing again, run it back, some of those guys probably would have stayed. But when everybody leaves, I'm like, good God. And then he's got to go hire Wink Martindale, who's literally got fired by the Giants, unemployed. They got to pay him $3 million on a 3-year term to get him to come so they can have some sort of a name, I guess. And then I look at the rest of his coaching staff, and I'm just like, God, that's that's a D level, C minus level coaching staff, probably D level coaching staff. And then I look at what we did. We go get Chip Kelly, who's the best offensive mind maybe in the history of college football. We go get Will Howard, get Caleb Downs. So I was like, this isn't going to end well for these guys because you notice like they could have gone and got a portal quarterback, but they didn't. I don't know if it's out of arrogance, if it's out of stupidity, if it's out of their NIL. I have no idea. You'd think that there'd be some quarterback from a mid-major school that would want to come play quarterback at Michigan, but they didn't.
Kirk. They thought Orgy was the next coming. They were all in on that guy. They were and we're going. Remember when we'd have those conversations? We had the conversation with Yoder, and we're like, you have a quarterback who can't complete a pass 5 yards down the field. What are you talking about? Oh, Orgy's going to be in the Heisman, and like, this guy stinks so badly.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be like if someone tried to convince me that this is before the Achilles, but like if they said the Browns are going to win the Super Bowl with Deshaun, they're like, well, Deshaun runs a 5-flat 40 and he can't throw, or it'd be like if someone said that they wanted that the Colts would win a Super Bowl with Anthony Richardson playing quarterback. Who again, I know people like to dog out Will Howard for accuracy and arm strength, whatever. Anthony Richardson he's the worst quarterback I think I've ever seen, and they won today because he runs for 50 yards, but. I mean, if you start a receiver in fantasy, like I have Josh Downs, I have Caleb's brother on both my teams. It's like he is like Joe Flacco is 5 times better than that guy, and they bench him because you take Richardson 3rd overall, and that's what Orgy is. He's fast, he's big, he's hulking, but if you can't throw and make plays from the pocket, like you have no chance versus like good football teams. Like you watch Georgia, Texas, Oregon. What do they all have in common? Ohio State. They've got great quarterbacks that can make plays from the pocket, and they can also create. So they do both. Beck had that huge run at the end of the game, and that was a backbreaker. You saw Arch Manning run around. You saw Quinn. Quinn looked hurt. I mean, Quinn. There was something missing with Quinn. But you see Will Howard. You see Dylan Gabriel. Like these guys can throw. These guys can make plays from the pocket. So yeah, but I mean, if you're that stupid to think that guy's going to get you where you need to go, then that's your fault. Again, it's kind of like when Ryan Day decided to move on from Tate Martell and go get Justin Fields. Like, I mean, he did it because he's like, I think that Justin will be better than Tate. And again, for what his offense was, it probably was. Like if we had Urban's offense, I think Tate would have been great. But if you go to what Ryan likes to do, then Justin Fields becomes a 1st-round pick. So again, that's on the coaching staff, it's on the personnel department, which again, it all got gutted because I think not only did they know that there weren't many players coming back, but when you're around a guy, when you're around the head coach, you can tell if he's got the goods or not, and like I was around Truss, I was around Luke Fickell, and I was around Urban Meyer. Like Urban Meyer was a guy that I was like, yeah, if we do everything this guy says, it might be painful. Like it might be Chinese water torture every single day that we're there. But if we do what he says, we're probably going to win. And we won every game, and then he won a national championship within 2 years, and he developed the program into this juggernaut. And because again, he had the it factor. Sherrone Moore looks lost. And again, I don't fault the guy. He's like a year younger than me. They offered him a huge contract, basically to set him up for life to be the fall guy. And they'll fire him probably in 2 years, and they'll go get a real coach. They'll go after the guy from Indiana, or they'll go get the hot guy. They'll go get the hot guy that's the big name and the big splash guy. Because right now the Indiana guy is like, he's the new darling where people are saying, man, I wish we played like the Indiana Hoosiers. Man, they're really good. I'm like, that's when I know that we've reached peak silly season, is when people are telling me that, man, I wish Ohio State was more like Indiana. I'm like, oh my God, stop. Kirk Barton, he's won like 6 games and people are ready to put him in the Hall of Fame. But that's just my opinion. But I do think that they'll be a tougher match than Michigan this year. What are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Yeah, no, look, there's always we talked about what we learned this weekend, and I learned that, man, Ohio State fans have really, really short memories about stuff. Here, I'm going to give you a little stat now. Okay, I'm going to give you a little stat now. Georgia. We saw Georgia, play last night, and now everybody's just like, the Georgia defense is the greatest defense in the history of defenses. They are playing 4-dimensional Spock chess while we're still playing checkers, and I've never seen a defense since the '85 Bears that's been as dominant as the Georgia 2024 defense. I mean, just this effusive, over the top praise, and I'm like, man, I thought they played pretty well last night, but I started looking at the stats for Georgia, and I know people hate stats. I'm going to say it right. I understand whenever whenever Nevada gets on this little math thing, people get, oh, Nevada, that's just, you're using math. And I'm like, well, I like math. I like, math kind of takes out all the noise and stuff. So then I'm like, well, okay, so let's look at like three. I'm going to just take three stats from random. We'll take sacks because Georgia had a lot of sacks last night. Tackles for losses because Georgia had a lot of tackles for losses, and points per game because Georgia held them to 15 points. So I'm like, well, who's averaging less points per game this year? Well, Ohio State is by like 6 points less per game. Because remember, not only did Georgia soil the buoy against Alabama, they did the same thing against Mississippi State. 1-6 Mississippi State, they gave up 31 points to. So to say their defense has been struggling is to be kind. Okay, that's the first thing. Secondly, sacks. Georgia is averaging less sacks per game than Ohio State. No pressure Ohio State is this year. Okay, at that little stat, that was it. Even with seven last night, they are still averaging less numbers of sacks per game than Ohio State is this year. I'm like, wow, okay, well, let's go to tackles for losses, right? Even after last night's performance, they're still averaging less tackles for loss per game than Ohio State is. But Ohio State's defense, literally, Knowles has got to be fired. The whole thing's got to be gone. Don't tell me about your stupid numbers. And Georgia, man, Georgia is the absolute goal. How can we not play more like Georgia? And I'm just like, I don't even know what to say anymore, guys. Maybe moderate your viewpoints just a little bit on some of this stuff. I know everybody wants Knowles. Knowles fired. I think. What percentage would you say of the Ohio State population wants Knowles fired right now? I think it's 70%. What do you?
I was gonna say probably I'd say 65, 70. Because I was gonna say 50, but the more I think about it, it's like I just think that anytime we lose a game as an Ohio State constituency, it's like everyone immediately wants somebody. They want somebody's head. It's like Game of Thrones. Yeah. Somebody has to have their head cut off immediately. Like if Ryan Day, I think like the best case scenario for like Ohio State fans would be like if we got home from Oregon at like 6 a.m. and Ryan Day had like the bugle players come out with the horns and they like marched, they made Jim Knowles walk like the walk of shame, like in Game of Thrones, and he had to ring, they ring the bell in shame, and he's got to like walk naked to the middle of the oval. And then Ryan Day had like a big broadsword, and he just like cut Jim's head off. I think that would satisfy the fan base better than pretty much anything, because it's amazing how like bloodthirsty our fans are, especially like when I get like some of the vitriol, like we've been smashed. We've had those blowouts that don't make any sense, and Purdue and Iowa and the Florida game. I get that. But like when you lose by basically 1 yard, on the road versus the number one team in the country, I'm like, guys, like, again, like, do you really think Oregon wants to see us again at this point? Probably not, because we handed them the game. We gave them the ball on the 20-yard line when Quinshawn fumbled, and we also we missed up that squib kick where they got the ball back on the 50. So like the odds of us doing that again are slim. And if we don't have those two plays, and again, I'm not blaming those two guys. I think Caleb Downs and Quinshawn Judkins are fantastic Buckeyes, and I wish that we had them for their whole careers. But those are big moments in the game. Like when you touch the football, the fate of the entire organization rests in your hands, like literally. So like when he bounces off Quinshawn, or when he rips out of Quinshawn's hands the 55 from Oregon, and when it bounces off Caleb's down on that squib, like that's the fate of the organization. And again, I just like that perspective. Some of my guys, like, if you're upset about that, again, this is the National Football League now. Like, this is like, if we lose a game, it's okay. Let's get back to work on Sunday and rally. And the big thing is you just can't lose 3 games. You lose 1 game, maybe you lose 2 games to make the playoffs. And we lose to Penn State and still be in as a 12 seed. You lose to number 1 Oregon on the road by 1 point off of an OPI that they never should have called, where we could have kicked the field goal and won in Outson. And then, you lose, if you say we lose to Penn State, worst case scenario, like you lose to the number 3 team in the country, or 2 or 4 team, whatever Penn State is, like, and you lose, and it's close, as long as it's not 77-0, like, again, that's football, and again, you have to rally. And again, the regular season, it matters a lot because obviously this isn't the NFL where you can get in at, 9-8 or whatever it is. Now they play 17 games. Like now you gotta, you can't have more than 2 losses, but God bless guys. Like our guys, I thought our guys played hard. Now, if our guys, I thought Ryan Day had a good plan. I thought that Chip Kelly in the office, again, you watch that first drive and, like Matt Leinart was like thinking this is about to be a blowout. I mean, that's what he said to Ruben. He's like, this is about to be a blowout. Because we walked down that field like we were artificial intelligence Terminator robots coming to kill every duck in sight. And again, I'm sure those guys were terrified because they're just like, Jesus Christ, they got right down the field and Will Howard powers it in and we weren't sleepy. It wasn't West Coast time. It wasn't anything. Like those guys rolled. But, again, like sometimes like it's like the Texas Longhorns. Do I think Texas is really as bad as they looked last night? No. Do I think Quinn Ewers is that bad? I think he's hurt, but I don't think he's that bad. But, their offensive line picked a bad time to have a bad time. Georgia picked a good time to have their best game of the season by far. They were jazzed up for the game. Texas, it might have been a little too much for them. But again, the season keeps rolling. Texas, they're having a miserable day on Sunday. I'm sure that they're finishing up practice right now and they're getting back on the horse. Because again, that's the thing about football, man, is like, you can't wait to get to that next practice on Tuesday when you lose a game. But Texas got to get back on the horse. They got to go to class and get made fun of by all their classmates and ask what happened and everything. Like I've lived that. And that's why, that's kind of like the charm of going to Ohio State is like when you're a football player and you lose a game, you still get to go to class on Monday and explain to everybody why we lost the game. Like I had to go up in front of my professor. He asked me to come and explain why we lost to Penn State in 2005. It was me and one of my teammates. And I went up there and I've got a boot on my foot for my broken foot. My knee's in a brace because I tore my MCL. And I had to go up there to explain why we lost, which again, it's fine. Like I said, I tell people, and again, there's some people that are ride or die. There's some people that are with you regardless. But I always say, I'm like, man, I'm glad that, a decent portion of the people that, support Ohio State, I'm glad they don't have to play for Ohio State because like, they'd roll over and die. I'd be like, dude, these guys got to get off the shelf and go get ready for Nebraska. Like that Oregon game's been flushed down the toilet for 7 days now. And that's the way it has to be. You watch the film, you learn from it. And then again, I've said it 1,000 times and I'm not saying it because I'm a loser or because I don't think winning is everything, but losing, if you lose, again, there's great people who have said you either win or you learn. As long as you learn from it in the 12-team playoff era, I think it can be very helpful because I would hate to know what this town would be like, what Ohio State would be like, what our fan base would be like, what NIL would be like, what the agents would be like, the NFL community, mock drafts. I would hate to know what it would be like right now if we'd won that game because, oh my God, the kings of the North have arrived. It would have been, and again, I've lived that. And like, honestly, I think it's better for these guys to shed the skin of the people that aren't really with you and kind of get some clarity and get a moment of clarity where it's like, hey, not everybody that's, a big time Ohio State fan is a ride or die because, you find out a lot from who's with you after a loss, after a bad time, a bad experience. And again, if I'm this team, man, I can't wait to just kick the living crap out of everybody that we play going forward because that's what I would do. Again, like when we lost to Illinois my senior year, like I was like, I can't wait to go play Michigan. I can't wait. And again, I was every single scary movie you guys have ever seen. That's what I was that week. I was such an a-hole. People hated me. People still don't like me because I was like, we are never going to play like that again. I don't care. And again, if we lose because we're stupid like we did against LSU, that's one thing. But we're not going to get out efforted. We're not going to get out whatever. We're going to be ready to go. And that's the mission, like when we lost LSU, we had 5 personal fouls, field goal block. We did drop the touch. We did every dumb thing you could do. So, when you play equal talent, you have to play a clean game. And unfortunately, like when we lose some of these big games, there's some moments that just aren't quite clean. But I like the direction of the team. I've talked to dozens of people during the bye week around the program. I think there's going to be some new starters, which will be very interesting. But it's still up in the balance right now. So I'm not going to name names at this point, but it's interesting. And again, I think it's going to be good for the team. Because again, if I'm Ryan Day, I'm putting some guys on notice. I watched the All 22 film the other night. I stayed up till 8 a.m, rewatched it multiple times, took notes. I was like, yeah, this guy needs to get a little shock and awe to his morale to get a little bit more focus in a game like this. But That's just me. And I'm sure Ryan, like, if you put that stuff on tape, man, you're signing your name to it. And some of those guys better wake up and figure out that, hey, they can lose their jobs, because some of those guys should lose their jobs that are starting on our team, because they just make too many mental errors. It's not, like I'm not talking Denzel. Like, Denzel, I really think Denzel plays hard. I think that he feels horrible, I'm sure, but he didn't have blown assignments. We have guys that blow assignments, or guys that don't play hard. Those guys need to be to see the bench a little bit more. And there's some guys behind them that I think are better players. What are your thoughts on that? And we'll dig into some super chats.
Yeah, no, I know when you were in your stupor at 7:59 in the morning or something like that.
God. And I called you.
You called me and you're like, I just watched the 2-man rush and that play could have actually worked. Those guys do their job. That play
no, I'm telling you. Like, I mean, I was like, if Ty Hamilton grabs the center like he's supposed to, or he rushes and doesn't like mail it in. And again, I'm not being hard on Ty, but again, I know from an offensive line perspective, you have to understand, I've seen zone blitzes were the meta when I played. Like, everyone loved the Pittsburgh Steelers zone blitzes. And so, like, when the defensive end would drop and he wouldn't really rush, he'd take this lazy step and pop up. He'd immediately pop. As soon as a defensive lineman pops his shoulder straight up in the air, he's dropping, because there's no pass rush that starts with a guy popping his shoulder pad straight up in the air. They come off like bullets. They come off, 3-point stance, butt up in the air, coming to, kill you, basically. I mean, you guys have ever pushed a sled in the gym or whatever, like that's that. So as soon as they pop up, you're like, yeah, this guy ain't coming. So we were just a little too easy to go against. And again, but that thing, like, Sonny Styles would have put Dylan Gabriel in a coma. He was ready. He hit it, but we didn't occupy the center. But I mean, Sonny Styles would have killed him. Like, I'm telling you, it was the perfect call too. And I'm like, oh my God, people, they just don't know how close that thing was to working. Because again, I watched it, I was like, I liked the call. Now, honestly, if I coached it, if you said, Kirk, you're the D-line coach and you get to coach Ty on that, I say, just grab the tackle. Screw it. Grab him. Go grab him and pull him so that he can't get off. Because there's a split right here. I should just, I could run it. I just don't want it to get dinged. But literally, like, there's a split, man. And I'm like, oh my God, Sonny would have hit that crease and it would have been, Dylan Gabriel would have been in the hospital. Because, I mean, if Sonny is running in a straight line, running a 4.5 or whatever, and he hits you, like, you're probably going to evaporate, like, right quick. You're going to eviscerate. You're going to turn into a pile of dust, like, whatever. But yeah, like I said, I mean, as much as everyone says, burn the whole place, I'm like, guys, like, we are really close. Really close. But that's just me. And again, I'm not a sunshine pumper. I'm analytical and I study the film and I watch more football than every other person on the beat combined. I promise you. Cause I have every all 22 tape and I watch all of it. And I'm just like, yeah, this is, we're really, really close. So I'm team Buckeyes at this point. And there isn't a team out there that I'm like, oh my God, if we play those guys, we have no shot. Now again, when you show up against Georgia and you show up against Texas, neutral field, I don't even know who the other teams are. Oregon, obviously, if Bama sneaks in there because they've got talent and they've got a really, Bama is, they're still, they are the most flighty, because I don't think they're well coached, but their quarterback is, when he's on, he's a good player and he can run, which is terrifying to me. But I just think that, we can play with any of the teams in the country. We can beat any team in this country. We can win a national championship, but it's up to the guys. It's up to the guys and the people in the Woody Hayes to get their minds right. Because again, like, this is an opportunity where it's like, there isn't some, gauntlet that needs to be thrown down, because there isn't a team out there where I'm just like, oh my God, they've got everything. Every team's got some sort of a weakness that we can exploit. And I think we will. Any thoughts on that? We'll dig in some super chats.
No, I agree with you. No super teams, and teams show some great variability from week to week, and I expect to see Ohio State, despite they've got a little bit of the injury bug biting them right now, but despite that, I expect Ohio State to have a big effort against Nebraska.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let me get this up here. Gabe Gaines, appreciate you, my friend. Thank you for the 5. Can we expect anything different in terms of defense this week? I think that there could be a new starter. I'm going to leave that up there. I'm going to let Ryan announce that. I'm not going to go into that. But, Nevada, I'll let you go first. I've been talking for a lot. Then I'll give you give us what if we could expect anything. or if there's anything that you personally would change.
Well, look, me personally changing, you guys know what I would change. But the good news is what I would personally change and what they're changing is the same thing. You're going to see more pressure. You're going to see more pressure. They know that. They know that however they got to that point, they know that they're not bringing enough pressure. And, but like I said, we'll see it. Yeah, and either we'll see it or we don't. And if we don't see it against Nebraska, then to me, that would be the first sign that there truly are some sort of a problem or some sort of a disconnect or something. But they know what the mandate is. They know they've got to pressure the quarterback. They know that they've got to upset the quarterback. They know they've got to get the quarterbacks off rhythm. And, they've had very, very contentious meetings about this. But I believe they have a meeting of the minds on that. As I said, we will see. So, if they go back there and it's the same old 4 people rushing, everybody just rushing the outside shoulder, do I think they're going to become like the blitz happy 85 Bears bringing 9 guys? I don't think that, but I do believe that they're going to bring a lot more pressure. I know they've worked on that. I know they've game planned that. Now they just got to call it up next Saturday, but I really believe that's what we'll see.
I mean, one thing I would do, and this is something Urban would have done, is I'd go to these backup defensive linemen, backup D tackles, specifically the defensive tackles, because I think our biggest problem is that Tyleek and Ty Hamilton have to play basically the entire game. And when you watch Georgia, and again, I know Georgia is the meta, they're the greatest defensive team that's ever lived after last night. They rotate their guys a ton. And third down, they bring in 4 new fresh bodies. And again, they're specific pass rusher types, which we do that. We do that a lot on third down. Now we bring in Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson. We do kind of like a 4-man rushman type package. But I just think that Tyleek plays too much. And again, it's not because I don't love Tyleek. I think Tyleek is, you watch the first play of that game, man, and you can see why he's a first round pick. He knocks their guard 5 yards back into the backfield. And I was like, yeah, that's not fun to go against. But as the game goes on, when you're 340 pounds, you get tired. Like some guys get tired and some guys get tired. And Tyleek gets tired. And when Tyleek gets tired, he is not effective. He stands up, he plays high. And again, I love the kid. Like I think that he, if you cut his snaps by 30%, I think you get triple the output. Just because I think that he mentally is like, man, I got to play this whole game. Like I got to pace myself a little bit. And again, he runs to the ball for a big guy. He plays with a ton of effort. He runs down stuff, chases the ball. Because again, he knows that NFL scouts are going to be watching this film, this Oregon film. This is the one they're going to watch. They're not going to watch this Akron and Western Michigan. They want to see Oregon versus Ohio State. They're going to spend the whole time evaluating this game. And he's running around there, but he gets tired. So again, I'm going to Hero Canoe, Caden McDonald, I'm Larry Johnson. I'm having a powwow and saying, guys, like, do you want us to win a national title? If you guys step up and start playing and we can put you out there and you don't get, done. And again, Caden McDonald's out there and Caden McDonald needs to play more. Again, I'm not trying to, I have a ton of respect. I have more respect for Larry Johnson than anybody in the league. Because I went against his players. His players always played hard. They're very, very well coached, very, very tight. So again, I always am very hesitant to criticize Larry Johnson because I think that he's a mastermind. And again, I've Joey Bosa, Nick Bosa, Chase Young, those guys all swear by him. But I went against these guys at Penn State, man, and they were always bad dudes. Like, they were always, you better eat your Wheaties and get ready to go against those guys. But I think that, Tyleek and Ty, those guys they're animals and they play hard. But man, it's hard to play that many snaps at defensive tackle, and I think that rotating them would enhance our pass rush. I like when we do the 4 defensive end pass rush stuff. We need more out of Kenyatta Jackson, honestly. Caden Curry, I think, is more slippery. But like we had to look where they moved Jack inside, and he was really effective. And again, I'm not advocating for him to be a 3 technique, but if you put a defensive end over a guard, a lot of times that's a good matchup, a good speed matchup, especially because Jack doesn't give up a lot of strength. Like some defensive ends are 6'5", 210 pounds, and they can't really match up versus a 320 pound guard. But Jack's 255, 260, and he can hang in there versus a 300 pound guard and knock him back a little bit and beat him with speed. So I would honestly study some of Georgia stuff. Georgia does some really unique stuff that confuses, because some of the sacks they got last night, it wasn't like their guys were just dog whipping Texas's line. Like I'm gonna watch a cut up and try to get a cut up made of some of the stuff they did, but they did some stuff where they would shift last second. They'd line up in odd, like the very last play that they ran, it literally was just a misassignment. It was 2 misassignments by Texas's offensive line. It wasn't because they had Aaron Donald hit some crazy spin move or Dwight Freeney or, and that's part of, I think when Nick Saban says the antiquated 4-down thing, I just think that there has to be a little bit more shifting and movement. Now, I'm not saying you do that all the time, because if you do that all the time, you can get caught. But, a lot of the stuff they're doing against Texas, and Texas has the highest paid offensive line coach in the country in Kyle Flood. They confuse those guys. And those guys, going into that game, most people would say that Texas had the best offensive line in the country. And they looked like a bunch of freshmen that didn't know how to pick up pretty remedial stuff. But again, that's a credit to Georgia. Because again, sometimes it's not about just having overwhelmingly great pass rushers. Sometimes it's just about confusing the O-line and causing misassignments, and you run scot-free to the quarterback. So I'd like to see, I'm going to study that all 22, because I want to see some of the stuff Georgia does. They do a lot of interior twists too. We never twist our guys on the inside, our 2 defensive tackles. We don't ever have them do kind of a TT game, but I think that would be interesting to run with Caden Curry and Jack Sawyer on the inside. So yeah, that's some of the stuff that I look at. But I think that these corners are embarrassed. They want to claim best in America, but they got to put that in the closet for a minute until they get back to. They just got to be the best in the Big Ten now. I mean, so they got to get their minds right and get ready to go versus Nebraska. And Nebraska got smacked by Indiana, so you got a good film to watch of what they did. But Nebraska is going to try to take us deep. I guarantee it, because until you prove that you can stop that, teams are going to try to hit that. So, but I appreciate this great question. Naysayer 23, thank you for the 5. 3 things guaranteed: death, taxes, and King of the North being slayed. Wolverine head is rolling around Nevada OH. the king of the North. My favorite, the real king is like Tywin Lannister there, because he says anyone who says they're the king is no true king. I was like, anyone who has to say that they're the king is no true king. I was like, Tywin is the GOAT, man. Nevada, your thoughts? I guaranteed death, taxes. The fourth thing I would guarantee is that me and Nevada always have some hilariously bad beats when we bet, and we always commiserate together. So those are the 4 guarantees I would say. Your thoughts, Nevada?
Yeah, no, I think the 5th guarantee is Michigan fans never taking responsibility for anything that goes on in the program. I mean, it's the most amazing phenomena that I've ever seen. I mean, I know that Twitter and social media is generally the domain of the dumb, and but with the Michigan fans, like you'd like to see some just a flicker of rationality where they're like, maybe we really were cheating. Maybe that's why we won these games. Maybe that's how we magically turn it around without better players or recruiting or transfer portal or coaches. Maybe that really was the secret sauce, because it's so obvious to everybody else what was going on. But I put that as the 5th truism of all, is the Michigan fans' refusal to accept any responsibility for all the bad practices going on within their program.
You could put Connor Stein being an idiot too. You put that on there, because again, I watched a lot of I watched a bunch of games, like not just Ohio State games, all 22 tape. But it's just like it's just funny to me, because you don't see a single signal ever in the entire cut up. So again, his advanced scouting, which again, when his entire livelihood depends upon him being accurate at stealing signs, that's why he did exactly what he did. Because all of a sudden he went from being a water boy who had to set up the picnic tables for a training table after the practice, to being the right-hand guy of the 2 coordinators and the head coach, who got a game ball as an intern, which I've literally never seen before. And honestly, if I was in his shoes and someone gave me a game ball, I would almost like reject it, because I'd be like, I don't know if you don't want to draw attention to what I'm doing. I don't know if you want to give why is this intern getting a game ball?
Wait a second. B Fox never got a game ball.
B Fox did not get. B Fox was in the shadows, baby. B
B
Fox
Fox
is a
is
good dude.
the greatest intern of all time. The greatest intern.
He
If there's
really
a, if
is.
there's an intern, he really was the greatest intern of all time.
You could build like a little short statue of him in front of the Woody Hayes. That'd be great. It would cost a lot. It would cost a lot of bronze to build a B Fox statue, so that'd be good though. See, and he not only was he short, but he was skinny, so that you don't have the like. He's not like if you had to build a short version of me, that still costs a lot of money. Andrew Schmitz, thank you for the 10. What are your thoughts on Georgia's pressure and pass rush? Great question. When will we see this from the Buckeyes? It seems as if OSU is not utilizing their talent to the fullest. Well, I'm waiting on that tape. I want to watch that tape. I think that they do some interesting stuff that's confusing. They do some stuff where they have 2 down linemen in and they've got more linebackerish type guys. So, when you've got less D linemen on the field, then generally you can bring pressure from more different spots, which they like to do. But I want to really study it. I think that obviously they've got great talent. I mean, Georgia, if you put a gun to my head, outside of Ohio, if you said you have to swap Ohio State's defense for somebody's, I'd take Georgia's. Now, I'm not saying I would swap out our whole, because we have Caleb Downs, and I know everyone's going to laugh when I say Denzel and our front, but our defense is every bit as talented as theirs, in my opinion. Again, these guys gave up, 45 points or whatever to Alabama and gave up the game-winning 80-yard touch. I mean, nobody was singing their praises in Athens or on ESPN or on any message board when they gave up a 80-yard touchdown to a 17-year-old freshman wide receiver to lose the game in Tuscaloosa. So, I know that they're the bee's knees, but I've got, I'm not a fruit fly. My memory is a little longer than 8 seconds. But some people don't seem to remember that game. I do. So us losing by 1 point to Oregon, who I think Oregon's, I think our offense is really good, but I think Oregon's is top 2 or 3 in the country, and they've got a great quarterback and good speed and good skill and good scheme. So, I think that, it'd be interesting to see Georgia play Oregon, see what they do there. But, I think that you can learn stuff. I think that if there's pressures that are continuously effective that Georgia does, I would try maybe one of them, maybe not all of them. Like, I'm not trying to copy all their stuff, but if they've got stuff that's effective, I'd maybe give it a shot. Like, I think that they stem to odd, which is like a 3-4-ish type defense. They stem to bear. They were moving around a lot. They weren't just stagnant and lined up in 4 down and rushing. But again, I want to watch their tape because I'm really interested. But if you guys go back and watch, if you guys have the game saved or you want to watch on YouTube, the last play of the game, they start off in a 3-down look. And at the last second, they shift to a blitz 0 look where they bring 6 guys. And the 2 inside guys from Texas completely spit the bit and give up 2 interior pressures, which you're never supposed to do. So it was like they had a brain fart right in the biggest moment of the biggest game of their lives. So that's part of what it is sometimes. Like, it wasn't like the Georgia guys on the interior hit some crazy bull rush or some spin move and they got pressure. It was just that the Texas guys screwed up. And part of that's because they run some confusing stuff, which, again, I'm all for. Nevada, what are your thoughts on Georgia's pressure and pass rush? When will we see this from the Buckeyes? It seems as if OSU is not utilizing their talent to the fullest. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, again, I gave you the stats earlier. Where has it been all year? I mean, Ohio State is doing a lousy job of pressure, and we average more sacks per game than Georgia does. We do a lousy job of pressure. We have more tackles for loss than Georgia. We haven't played well, and we're averaging less points than Georgia. So, I know that there's where's this been? So for Georgia, Georgia's got Kirby Smart, who's a pretty established defensive guy. We've got a more offensive guy as our head coach. I think give Ohio State a chance to respond. Georgia had a chance to respond after getting lit up by Alabama, after getting lit up by Mississippi State, and they've clearly made some changes because they went from almost having no sacks to getting 7 sacks in a game. So let's see what Ohio State does with it. We'll see if Ohio State can get the pressure. But despite as bad as Ohio State's been playing, they're still doing better than Georgia's doing this year. And again, that's not opinion, that's math. So I think Ohio State's best days are ahead of us. And I think that I think as weak a job as Ohio State has been in bringing pressure, the fact that we've been getting any sacks at all is really a tribute to how good our guys are. Now we just got to dial it up and take it to the next level.
Nick Ma 71, thank you for the 10. Overturning the bad call is right. Throwing bottles is wrong. Don't let your brainwashing get in the way by saying it's not reviewable. That exists to control the outcome. Believe it. Well, I don't know if I'm brainwashed because it literally is not reviewable. Like, you can't review a pass interference call at any level of football that I know of. Nevada, you can correct me, but I don't know. You can't throw a flag in the NFL, or you can't buzz it down in college if there's a PI and say that there was one or there wasn't one, or that's a bad call. So and that exists to control the outcome. I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's a little tinfoil hattish, but I mean, maybe. Again, I would love if they could review. The reason it exists is because then you can't slow the game down any further, because the game already is like in person. It's like painful to watch a game because there's so many commercial breaks now. So if all of a sudden you start doing reviews for pass interference, like, it makes the game even slower. But those are huge calls, and again, like those officials got together and they made the right call. But like I said, I've never seen anything like that before. And again, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but have you?
Well, no, because when we say you're not offering opinion. I love it when people dispute like facts. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's not opinion. It's not a reviewable call. You can't go, I'm gonna throw the flag and review whether or not that was pass interference. You know what league you can do that in? The XFL, the one with the rock. They have this super flag, and you can throw the super flag, and you can review anything. You can review whether was it a holding penalty on the defensive end, was it a face mask, but you can review anything. Not in college football, not in the NFL. It doesn't exist. So when we say the play was not reviewable, we're not offering your opinion. We're telling you the way it's not a reviewable play. So I have no idea what they were doing, and if the guy changed his mind, then how come it took him 10 minutes to change his mind on that? That should have been an immediate. I threw the flag and go, oh, I'm picking it up. No, I screwed up. I didn't mean to. I threw it. I didn't mean to throw it. I'm picking the thing up. It's kind of like when I clicked the button and I made that reservation on Expedia, and then I went to cancel it immediately, and then Expedia took all my money. Like, that's what I'm talking about. That's like an immediately. Hey, I didn't mean to make the reservation. I clicked cancel or something like that. This guy took 10 minutes and watching the bottles come raining down to the field. So we're not offering your opinion. We're offering you facts. That's not a reviewable play.
That's when magically Nevadabuck changes his alias to Small Claims Court Buck.
Small Claims Court. Expedia's going to pay. Expedia's going to pay.
We're gonna BuckeyeScoop.expedia.com is gonna be our new address. I can't wait.
November 5th, baby. November 5th. It all comes down.
Oh, that's the day after my birthday. That's perfect. I'll use Nevadabuck's brand new Expedia travel site that he's gonna acquire. That'll be great. I'll be so excited for that.
I'm gonna go take everything I have, man.
That's gonna be great. You have you're gonna have so many free vouchers. You're gonna have so many free Frontier Airlines flights. It's gonna be amazing.
I'm taking everything.
Don Schaefer, my man, I hope you're good. Thank you for being an Ultra member. Thank you for the 10. It appears that our boy James Yoder is in official meltdown mode along with the rest of the Ton fan base. It's amazingly humorous and rewarding. Do you think any of their A players step aside? Well, I mean, Will Johnson's going to have whatever his injury is that thing is going to last for the next 3 months. These guys are not going to come back to lose to Ohio State. Again, they're going to duck playing Ohio State. They're going to duck playing the rest of the season because, well, I mean, this is why there was all this heat about them transferring out. Because, like, why would you want to come back for this, like, monstrosity of a season when you could have went out on top? And, it honestly kind of it reminded me of in 2010 when we won the Sugar Bowl and beat Arkansas, and you got Brewster and Mike Adams and all these kids, and they come back for their senior year and they lose 7 games, and the fan base hates them and they suck, and it's like they could have left and went to the NFL and been in the league as a rookie and dodged the misery of that season, but they didn't. They stuck around, and now, but they didn't have that wonderful send off that every Ohio State player kind of prays that they'd have. But I don't know. Nevada, it's not like we didn't tell them it was coming. We saw it coming. We bet like we knew it was coming, and we were right. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I mean, Will Johnson's the biggest quitter of the bunch too, because I think Loveland and those two defensive linemen are actually better. I think Johnson's a complete quitter, so he'll be the first one to tap. But yeah, I would expect COVID or whooping cough or other things to start ripping through that locker. I can't imagine how bad a situation that is with those guys right now, because those guys are like, what have we got ourselves into? We've got a staff that's over its head. We've got a team that's going nowhere. The quarterback play might be the worst quarterback play that I've ever seen at a major college football program. And the fact that those guys were going all in on Alex Orji, saying Alex Orji was going to be a Heisman finalist, and Alex Orji is going to take us to the college football. And Yoder's argument that Michigan's too big to punish because the college football playoff can't make it without Michigan in it. They're too big of a draw. It's like, well, somehow they're going to have to make it through this year without Michigan in it. And let me tell you what, Michigan ain't getting in the playoff anytime soon. So somehow the college football playoff is going to have to soldier on without the mighty Michigan Wolverines as that big draw. Hey, Florida State, you ain't going either. USC, no, back of the line too. So there's a lot of big schools that aren't going, but Michigan's not going to the college football playoff anytime soon, and that cracks me up. But it amuses me.
That was an all-time take, because you look at a lot of teams that are either dead or they're code blue at this point. I mean, SC is dead. I mean, there was a time where people thought they'd sneak in, and that the college football playoff would love to have the LA market. They're not going to get with UCLA. Bama is at death's door. They've got 2 losses. They lose again. They've got. I mean, we got a lot of football. We're middle to the end of October right now. So, are they going to run the table and have 2 losses? I don't know. But a lot of the big brands that people are like, man, those are the big cute brands that everybody wants to see. Like, not doing too hot. And Michigan's right at the top, baby. You're gonna have a defending champion who will be playing in the the Continental Tire Bowl or something, and it's gonna be like.
They might not be bowl eligible. They might not be bowl eligible. They might go 5-7.
So Nevada, what do you think changed that all of a sudden they went from running the table and being quote unquote the greatest college football team of all time to not being bowl eligible? What could have possibly changed in their operations?
Yeah, I can't really put my finger on it. It's hard to yeah. I don't know. I'll have to ponder that. I'll have to ponder that one and get back to it. But something has definitely changed with Michigan football right now, where they went from superhuman. It's kind of like, when Barry Bonds went from like really, really good. I mean, like really, really good to like he hit every ball 750 feet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like a size 9 hat. All of a sudden, his head grew to be twice as big. He's like,
he looked like the Jack in the Box or something like that, with that big old head with a baseball thing on it. But boy, he could hit the baseball. But yeah, something has changed with Michigan football, and I really can't put my finger on it. But I'll get back to him though.
Mike Green, thank you for the 5. Like I told my guy B. Moses, Michigan is the same team that was trash in the 2018-19 seasons. The delusion is unsettling and perfectly. Yeah, it is kind of funny. That's, people thought that they were great, and we played them in 18 and we scored like 60 something points on them. That was absolutely hilarious to watch, because they were in, man, and we just ran mesh over and over again. We ran like our crossing patterns, and they're in man, and they can't run with Terry McLaurin and Paris Campbell, and they ate them alive. So not real hard to go against. And but I totally agree with you. Eddie Phillips, thank you for the 20. I hope you're good, my friend. The Cheetos at North fans need treatment for their new disease, CAD, cheating addiction denial. Yeah, it's like I said, Michigan has like this weird thing where it's like the Fab Five is completely off the map. Like they took all the banners down. Michigan football, this cheating scandal. It's like, their arrogance is astonishingly bad at this point. But I just, for me, man, I don't know. Like, I mean, they really can't cope with the fact that the only reason that they went from being trash in a team that Urban would thrash over, even Ryan. I mean, Ryan thrashed him in 19. Then all of a sudden they started cheating. They dodge us in 20, and then they start cheating in 21, and then magically they get really good. And nobody can understand why the same recruits, the same 3-stars, the same idiot coaches, all of a sudden turned this team into a juggernaut. And again, when it was revealed, I was like, oh yeah. And so, they can say whatever they want about, oh, well, Ohio State has a Connor Stallions and, it didn't matter. And I got it off the TV tape and I got it off the All 22 tape and whatever, again, stuff that is just so fictitious. It's hilarious. Because again, Connor Stallions might think he's the smartest guy in the room, but he's not sitting in a room with me. And I run circles around him. So that's the thing is like when you're talking all this GA stuff, I'm like, yeah, dude, I was you when you're in diapers walking around in your parents' house. So just kind of is what it is at that point. Because you can fool a lot of guys, but it takes a wolf to catch a wolf. And he met the wolf. Nevada, again, Eddie, thanks for the 20. The cheaters up north fans need treatment for their new disease. Cheating, addiction, denial. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, but you have to admire Connor Stallions is such a stand-up guy. He refuses to name that guy at Ohio State, who's his equivalent, the guy there. He won't name him, because it's like a code of honor among those guys on that secret Reddit subgroup. He won't name that. He's like the last man that wouldn't rat, won't give up. He's not going to give up his Ohio State contact there. But we're saying to you, Connor, if you can hear our voice, you can name the name. I give you permission. Name the name. Tell us who is the secret sign stealer that's getting the signs off of the television coverage and using them for evil like you were doing. Let us know who that is.
Well, I mean, do you really think? I mean, say he made that claim. I can tell you exactly how that next staff meeting went. Ryan Day went in and said, "Look, if any of you guys are doing anything like this, cop to it now and stop doing it." He's not going to sit there and say. Because again, with Connor, if there was something going on where Ohio State had a guy who was like a Connor Stallions type guy, don't you think that somebody on Michigan's sideline, one of their video guys, one of their stupid, we've got these big video departments that make these highlight tapes. Wouldn't somebody be, getting some sort of a video of our sideline where if there was some guy, wouldn't there be one of Fox's 4K things getting a photo, or one of the 6,000 beat writers that follow Michigan football get a photo of somebody talking to our coordinators or our coach or whatever. And again, this year, our coaches are up in the box. And, when Ryan Day was the play caller last year and he's walking around up and down the sidelines, you never saw some random dude talking to Ryan Day in between every single play call. Didn't see it because it never happened. Didn't exist. Because again, when you're not, getting, illegal information, then you don't have any time for that. Because again, on the field, it's literal chaos. He's trying to get a call in, trying to get the formation in, trying to get everything in. And you don't have enough time to sit around and listen to some Geppetto unless he's stealing the stuff. Then you got to slow your process down and make sure that, hey, let's make sure that we get this. But I don't know. If you're stupid, Connor Stallions really preys on the fact that he thinks that there are people that are actually dumb enough to believe that I got everything off of TV tape, off TV copies. I got everything off of All 22. I got everything off of whatever. And if you have a brain, or you're a guy like me who's actually been in the building, you've done all that stuff and you've seen all the film and whatever, you know how stupid that sounds. It's it would be like if I said I robbed a bank because I sat in my car and looked at it intently and then the money just appeared in my account or something. You'd be like, that's not how it happened. You had to have hacked into something or had someone else hack into something. You can't say, well, no, I thought it up and it disappeared in my thing. You'd be like, no, that's not how it works. You have to do something nefarious to get in there. And that's what he did. And again, I'm telling you, the pressure mounted and he's like, how can I become more efficient at it? How can I become deadly efficient at it? I got to send people to the games and have them video the signals in real time. Because then I have a whole, you know what that is? that's like if you could break into your professor's office and steal the test with the answer key and memorize it. And then, 4 days later, after you've been studying the answer key, you take the test and you get 100, you get 97% or 100% or whatever. You miss one or two just to make sure it looks like you're not cheating. That's what that's like. He stole the answer key and then he took the test and he acts like, well, I just studied really hard and took my Adderall and went to Starbucks and ate a croissant and had an espresso and I was ready to rock. So, it's just so dumb. Francis Plum, thanks for the deuce. The people to be blamed for losing at Oregon is Oregon. And again, that's where I'm at. I'm like, guys, they've got guys on scholarship too. They've got a $20 million roster. They've got good coaches. They were excited and they played well, and they didn't have the turnovers we did. They beat us in the rushing battle. We turned it over twice. And when you're playing equal talent, that's enough to lose, So again, they weren't perfect. I mean, they botched the PAT. They botched the 2-point look. So I don't know. I'd love to see them again, though. Bet your house on that. I mean, we go see them in the Big Ten championship game. I'm betting on Ohio State. As long as Zen McCulsey can hang in there, and I think Zen's going to do fine at left tackle. I'd help him a little bit early on, but I mean, come on, guys. They didn't exactly look like King Kong. And again, as great as Oregon is, and Nick Saban's fascinated and emboldened by how their defense played and all this. I'm like, they had one more sack than we did because Will tripped and fell down. So it wasn't like they were just dog walking our offensive line and our tackles and whatever. So again, the narratives that come out of stuff when there's film that you can watch is just absolutely astonishing, if not perplexing. Because I'm like, I watched this, I was like, I didn't see us getting the tar kicked out of us by these guys. And, they're 55, who's, was named midseason All-American, Derek Harmon, the kid from Michigan State. Austin Seyerville locked him up on the last play thing, and the kid had a spin move, and Austin just clamped him. He was in there for the last drive, and I'm just like, that's the guy who's the best defensive tackle in the history of mankind, who, we can't block and everything. I'm like, Austin clamped him. And again, Austin, he had some ups and downs. I think that, he's still getting used to the noise being a young kid, but that kid's going to be good. So just my opinion. Nevada, your thoughts again, Francis. I think it's a very good point. The people to be blamed for losing to Oregon at Oregon is Oregon. I agree. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're number one in the country. I mean, we lost by 1 point on the road at the number one team in the country. So, yeah, nothing. I mean, it's like you said, learning procedure, and especially with a weekend like this, I can't imagine if Ohio State had won, how much oxygen would be pumping through those guys' head right now in terms of oh, we're number one, Texas is gone, and we're the consensus number one team. And I mean, I hate that. I love being the hunter, I don't want to be up there and have a target on me as the number one team and everything. I love kind of sneaking up from behind as much as you can sneak up on anybody at Ohio State. So yeah, no, I totally agree with that sentiment.
Ben G, thank you for the 20. I am a day critic, but not in the fired day camp. Everyone, including Ryan, knows he's safe, in my opinion. I completely disagree with that. If you're Ross Bjork, how do you hold a, quote, safe coach accountable for fixing the sloppy mistakes that have shown in big games? Well, I don't think Ryan thinks that he's safe. I mean, again, dude, you're at Ohio State, man. I mean, you got, here's your stretch coming up. Ryan Day, Ryan Day doesn't sleep at night. He has nights where I know this, he doesn't have good nights of sleep a lot of times. So it's you're getting ready, you got to play Penn State, Indiana, who's really good, Michigan, who's terrible. There's honestly nothing worse than playing a terrible Michigan team, because if you lose to that team somehow, then it's over. It's curtains. I've talked to some of the biggest donors that are tied to Ohio State that are, billionaires, and they're like, he can't lose that game. So now again, you also can't lose to Indiana. You also can't lose to Penn. You can't lose any game, but Oregon is, to me, understandable because we lost by 1 point on the road, whatever. And again, I'm not Mr. It's okay to lose, but again, there's variances of losses. When Urban lost to Purdue and we lost by 60 to Iowa, those were kind of eye-opening head scratchers. Losing to Oregon by 1 point, who's the best team, number one team in the country, I mean, fine, especially in a 12-team playoff, guys. I'm like, come on, you got to get rolling to the next week and get ready to go. Get ready to start building towards that game in Happy Valley against Penn State, because that's going to be a monster. Because Drew Aller's way better than he was last year, and it's at their place. So I think I don't know. Like I don't think Ryan thinks he's safe. I mean, I know he's got a big contract and he's kind of got the quasi love of the fan base, but I don't think he thinks he's safe. And I'm sure Ross Bjork has to hold him accountable, because, again, Ross Bjork has to answer to all of the money people that cut checks for Ohio State. And if they don't like the head football coach because he loses too many games, then guess what? We're going to go find us a new head football coach. It'll be whatever new shiny object, Kirk Yeti or whoever. There's always some new shiny object that everybody wants that isn't the guy that we have in our seat. And it doesn't matter if it's Jim Tressel, Urban Meyer, Ryan Day. There's always people that everyone else wants that may or may not be as good as the people that we have. But people always want what they don't have. This is part of the whole uniqueness of being the head coach at Ohio State. Nevada, your thoughts again. Thanks for the 20, Ben. I appreciate you. He says he's a day critic, but not in the fire day camp. Everyone, including Ryan, knows he's safe, in my opinion. If you're Ross Bjork, how do you hold a, quote, safe coach accountable for fixing sloppy mistakes that have shown in big games? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, as you said, you can't lose to Michigan. The good news is he's not going to lose to Michigan, so that's kind of irrelevant. But no, I mean, the pressure Ohio State's called the graveyard of coaches for a lot of reasons. And, as you look at these coaches, at Florida State, you look at Lincoln Riley at USC, you look at Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. I'm just telling you, before you fire Ryan Day, or it's easy to find a replacement for Ryan Day, folks, it isn't easy. So be careful what you wish for.
Well, like Alabama went out. They replaced the best coach in history with the guy that was the reigning national coach, a guy that you and I thought very highly of. Where if we were like, man, if something happened right, if Ryan Day went to the Chicago Bears and was their new head coach, like, I'd really like Kalen DeBoer. And he shows up and promptly loses to Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and man, they are up the creek in a major way. And this is the guy that was the reigning coach of the year, took the Washington Huskies to the national championship, and he's struggling. So again, new doesn't always mean better, even though I think that's what some people think. Nick Ma 71, thanks for the 5. Aiden Childs fans support the scoop. I'm not sure what that means. That's the quarterback from Michigan State. He's a turnover machine. Maybe that's what it means. Nevada, any idea what Aiden Childs fans support the scoop? I mean, Michigan State people like us. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I took it as meaning that Michigan State and fans of us were buddies. We're lifelong pals.
They're great. I like Michigan State people. You are muted. Sean, thank you for the 5. Do you think Day will be ruthless against UM and run up the score? I hope he goes for 2 after every TD and still taking shots at the end zone at the end of the game. I mean, he's going to try to score as many points as he can. I mean, again, Ryan's had to deal with a lot the last 3 years, especially after those Michigan losses. I mean, Michigan losses are the most brutal losses you can experience as an Ohio State, as a member of the Ohio State organization, because it generally means you're not going to play the Big Ten title game, and you're just going to get lashed until you play a bowl game. So you got like a whole month of just getting beaten to death by our fan base and by the media and by whatever. And that's the game they judge you on. And again, when your predecessor, Coach Meyer goes 7-0, it's not fun. When you lose a couple, you lose at home, and they're beat downs. Like, it's not fun. The Stallions thing with cheating, it makes it worse because people know what they were doing, and there's some people that still don't recognize that, hey, they were cheating. So I don't know why you give this guy a hard time, but some people just don't care. And to them, it doesn't matter if they're cheating, and you need to have counterintelligence or whatever. So, Sean, thank you for the 5. Nevada, do you think Ryan Day will be ruthless against Michigan and run up the score? I hope he goes for 2 after every touchdown, still taking shots at the end zone at the end of the game. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have gone on record as saying that I believe it'll be the most emotionally, regardless of how bad Michigan is, I think this is going to be a vicious game. Like vicious. I think it'll be vicious off the field. I think it'll be vicious on the field. I think there's a lot of pent up frustration that's going to be taken out on that day. And yeah, I think it's going to be. If I was in Michigan, I would not come to that game. There's no way I would come to that game because I think you're putting yourself right in the bullseye, man. So if you're a Michigan fan, if you're within the sound of my voice, Michigan fans, I would say stay home or wear neutral colors and keep a low profile.
Agree. Poohbeard12, thank you for the 10. I appreciate you, my man. Thanks for being an honest member. Hope you're doing good. We watched the Oregon game. Our D-line ran 1 or 2 stunts the whole game. They did on 6 of the 10 plays on our final drive. I know you can't do this all the time, but if we rush 4, we should run some games up front. I agree, but I think as much as, you know, a little bit more confusion would be helpful, I think that rotating guys would help people. And again, it's not because I don't love Jack and JT and Tyleek, but when those guys are playing, you can't play those guys 60 plays versus a tempo team. Those guys were so gassed out. I mean, you can see it on film. Like they don't have anything left. They're so exhausted that and Oregon knows that. I mean, Oregon's not stupid, so they tempo, keep them on the field. And you know, like it's hard for these guys to pass rush. That's why, you know, in the NFL you have third down specialists, pass rushing defensive ends. Like that's like a kind of a meta that a lot of teams do, where they'll bring in like some skinnier, faster pass rushers. They have the bigger, heavier guys on rundowns, and then they'll have the skinny pass rushers come in. I mean, Georgia would bring in 4 new guys on third down versus Texas. 4 fresh guys coming in to rush the passer for one play. And that's harder to go against when you're in O-line, when all of a sudden you've got a guy with fresh legs coming in that's got his whole job is to get to the quarterback. So, you know, again, like when Jack and JT have to do everything, and again, I think that's Larry. I mean, because again, Larry generally controls the rotation, but I would talk to Ryan Day. I would talk to whoever is in charge of the rotation stuff and say, look, we got to play some more guys. And again, I know that's hard. And again, I've been critical of Ryan for not rotating the offensive line when we're up by 49 points because we're trying to get CJ Stroud a Heisman, which is stupid. Like, get the starters out of the game. Don't let anybody get hurt. And more importantly, these backups need to start playing. They need to play. They need to get their take their licks out on the field, get beaten a little bit, get some film out there so that they can develop and prove if they can play in the horseshoe or not. Because you're a lot of these guys are one play away from being starters. You know what I mean? Like Zen Mikulski was chilling on the sideline on the field goal unit. All of a sudden, he's the starting left tackle at Ohio State. So, you know, do I think that he'd be more ready if he'd played more? Yeah. But again, that's just a philosophical difference between Ryan and I. Poobier12, thank you for the 10. I appreciate you, my dude. Nevada, he says he rewatched the Oregon game. Our D-line ran 1 or 2 stunts the whole game. They did on 6 of the 10 plays on our final drive. I know you can't do this all the time, but if we rush 4, we should run some games at some point. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that the entire pressure scheme, whether it be, you know, stunting, twisting, rotating guys, bringing additional guys, bringing simulated pressure, bringing real pressure, zone blitzing, whatever, you know, for me, it gets a D- and maybe an F for its effort against Oregon. Just was not acceptable. Hopefully that's a low point for the year, and hopefully we build from there. I'm being told that's being addressed, but we'll see. But I couldn't agree more. They've got to be more creative up front. But the good news is I really do believe they're going to be.
Buckeye Moflo, thank you for the buck. Appreciate you, my friend. Troop Dog, thank you for the 5. Saban said our D scheme is antiquated. And why didn't coaches see we needed to bring more pressure during the game? Pressure during the game, I think. You know, I mean, obviously Nick Saban's the GOAT, so he's entitled to his opinion. And honestly, I'm sure Ryan Day heard that, and I'm sure Jim Knowles heard that from Ryan Day and the entire, you know, fan base universe that loves Jim Knowles. You know, I mean, is he right? Maybe, but like I said, like Nick Saban didn't pick Georgia to beat Texas, you know, and I don't think nobody on the game day staff picked Georgia to beat Texas. Nobody picked them to beat it down. They all picked Texas to win. Nobody thought Georgia was going to do what they did from a pressure standpoint because they hadn't really done that all year. I mean, you saw the volume of points Georgia has given up. Like Georgia has been living a little bit on their reputation from like 21 when they had maybe the best defense in the history of college football. But this year's defense is not that. And there's holes all over the place. Now, again, when Texas comes out and plays the worst game that they've played in probably 2 years, that helps Georgia look even better. So, to me, like, I don't know. Could our defense be better? But that's the problem. Is like when you lose a game, there's always going to be people that say you need to change this or do this more or whatever. And I don't know. Like, I mean, our defense was before the Oregon game was number 1 in the country and it's still probably in the top 5. So
three,
yeah, whatever. So I mean, it's not. I mean, if RD's antiquated, what's Alabama's defense at this point? That lost to Vanderbilt. Is theirs the horse and buggy, or is theirs like before there was even like a wheel? Is theirs just like a rock with a caveman next to it? That hasn't even discovered fire. Because again, I think the world of Nick Saban. I think he's one of the smartest football. He's easily one of the smartest football coaches ever lived, one of the best football coaches ever lived. But like, wake me when he says something like that about Alabama, or Kirby Smart, or when Georgia gets smashed and they give up 1 million points to Mississippi State. Like, again, follow the money, folks. He works for ESPN. ESPN is controlled by ABC. They literally have a vested financial interest in the SEC network. So again, poking Ohio State is a great way to get people. Because again, when he says that, all of a sudden we have 50 super chats about Nick Saban saying that Ohio State sucks and their defense is. I mean, they run a 4-down pass rush like 90% of the National Football League does. And they sub guys and they do some different stuff. They put 4 defensive ends in the game. So again, like, I don't know how futuristic you need to be. Like when most of the NFL, you watch the NFL, it's like 80% of the teams run 4 down and they have 4-down pass rush. And you can run some goofy stuff where you have linebackers walking around or go blitz 0 pressure, whatever. But it's not like we're doing, like we're running the 5-2 single wing stuff. But just my opinion. Nevada Troop Dog says Saban said our D is antiquated, and why didn't coaches see we need to bring more pressure during the game? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we all agree. There's nobody in the world does not believe that we should bring more, that we don't need to bring more pressure. So that we're all on team pressure. I mean, Nick Saban also said how impressive Oregon's defense was. So, you can't praise the defense that gives up 467 yards and 31 points, and then call the defense that gives up 32 and 495 antiquated. I mean, at least be fair. You can say, hey, both defenses disappointed me. Both defenses that's totally fair. Completely heap it on, man. You're the GOAT. You can say it, but you can't go off on talking about how good, because frankly, Oregon's defense didn't do much. And Ohio State's offense never had a short field, was never the benefactor of a turnover or a squib kick or anything. It had to drive the length of the field every time, and they did. They mounted, 5 long drives against Oregon, all over 75 yards. So Oregon's defense wasn't all that.
Well, like, my thing with that is, it's like Oregon lost, their defense they lost the game. The official threw a 15-yard penalty. We were on the 28-yard line, about to kick a field goal and win the game. So it's like, if we don't get a penalty, we swish that, we get on the plane, we're happy, and Ohio State is unanimous number 1 in the country. Best team since sliced bread. So it's like, that's what I don't get. It's like, when Oregon really needed to get a stop, even with Will Howard falling down on the first play, they still couldn't stop us. I mean, Will gifted him a free down where he fell down, and then the next play he threw a strike, dialed it up. I mean, they couldn't stop us. And they had one more. The only sack they had was one where we fell down. So they didn't have any pressure. All their exotic Dan Lanning, smell his own farts, pressure packages. I'm like, guys, like, they had one more sack than we did, and it was because our quarterback fell down. It wasn't because they hit some crazy move or some amazing whiz bang scheme where you're like, oh my God, how are you ever going to block that? They couldn't get past our guys. So again, I don't know. It's just funny, like the revisionist history that comes with these games is always hilarious to me. Buckeye Mo Flo, thank you for the buck. Appreciate you, my friend. I see your question. I'll get to that in 2 clicks. Dave Mathis, thank you for the deuce. Georgia's pass rush is 100,000 times better than ours. Nevada OH. Why don't they have more sacks?
I was going to say, or tackles for loss. I mean, like 100,000 times better than ours. Like, wow. Yeah, you think they'd average more sacks per game? No, they don't. You think they'd average less? Well, they'd stop them for less points per game. No, they don't do that either. Well, tackles for loss. They get no, don't do that one either. So
Well,
what is exactly they do better?
They wouldn't let Jalen Milroe throw for like 4. Whatever. I mean, how many yards did Jalen Milroe throw for? He's like a supersized Alex Orji. I mean, he's a big running back He's a big running back that can throw. And it's like, how many yards did he throw for? I mean, what, 400 yards? I mean, I don't know. It's just, but again, I didn't hear anything about Georgia's defense until after the Texas game. I didn't hear a single person saying, oh yeah, Georgia's going to clamp these guys and their pass rush is going to get home. Because again, coming to that game, Texas universally had the number 1 offensive line in the country. Universally. Left tackle, cinch first round pick, top 10. I mean, literally, I mean, the commentators, his first top 10 pick. They're left, and he was getting massacred by 13 from Georgia is really good. So again, does he have more pass rush juice than JT and Jack? I don't know. Maybe. Does he have to cage rush? I don't know. But again, I will say I like Georgia's rotation better, but I didn't see their production, skyrocket versus Bama and versus Mississippi State and the teams moving up down the field. And again, now we'll see how they handle a big win. How does this Georgia team handle beating the number 1 team in the country and the love and the adulation? Because if you guys haven't noticed the theme with young kids and organizations, when they had that big win, all that love, all that, it's like, how does it affect them? Because Bama beats Georgia at Bryant-Denny Stadium, emotional, loud, laser light show going off, whatever. And then they go out and lose to Vandy. So it's like, it's managing the emotions, the expectations, the love, the human element of the kids. So we'll see. I mean, again, there's a lot of football to be played. Like that's the thing is like I don't even, like football doesn't even start till really November. Like November is when you figure out who the real contenders are and who's going to make a run and try to win the championship. Rob Schaller, thanks for the 10. Appreciate you, my friend. Saw that Zen's PFF numbers were horrifying. A 36 on run blocking and a 24 in pass blocking. Is the D going to have to start carrying the team if the spot is an issue? I mean, God, I watched it. I didn't think it was that bad. I mean, there's some times where I'm sure that he probably could have done a little better, but I don't think he was a 24 in pass blocking. I mean, here's my thing. If you're a 24 in pass blocking, don't you think at some point in the game you'd have given up a sack or a pressure or quarterback hit or something? I don't know. I mean, go find me the sack that Zen gave up. I didn't see any. And for a guy that's ice cold coming off the bench who has never started a game in his life to play like that, I was like, it's pretty good. Now, was it perfect? No. Could he be better? Sure. Would I help him in versus good defensive ends, especially at Happy Valley where it's going to be loud? Absolutely. But dude, for the circumstances, I thought he played really well. And again, that's just me, and I don't know what I know about playing tackle, but I've been in very loud stadiums. Like I've been at Beaver Stadium during a whiteout, and that's as loud as you're ever going to hear in your life. It's the loudest stadium in the world. And Alton is, from the guys that have been to both, they said it was similar. Not quite as loud as the whiteout, but it was close. So, like I thought he played fine. I would still help him because, Josh is a senior, 2-3 year starter. So he needs to step in and receive less help. But, Chip Kelly's offense, you don't need Jonathan Ogden and Orlando Pace at tackle to be productive. You need guys that can get in the way. The ball's gone fast. And again, that's something I always tell people that are like, why don't we have 75 sacks anymore? It's like, well, because if you haven't noticed, football is dramatically different than it's been the last 15, 20 years. Because now with the RPO games and how quick the ball's out on every play, you don't have the opportunity to sack the quarterback like you did with the old drop back West Coast offense, 7-step drop under center. With modern football where everything's in the gun and it's RPO'd, the ball's gone fast. So a lot of these pass rushers, they can hit a perfect move and run straight to the quarterback and the ball's already gone instantly. So just my observations and my opinions. Rob Schaller, thank you for the 10. Nevada. He says he saw that Zen Mikulski's PFF numbers were horrifying. A 36 on run blocking, a 24 in pass blocking. Is the D going to have to start carrying the team if that spot is an issue. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, if Zen can't play, then certainly that's going to be a problem, and they got to find somebody who can play. But no, I mean, the moral of the story is, first of all, don't listen to PFF.
Oh
PFF is
God.
listed Alex Hornibrook is the greatest quarterback in the history of college football, and you got to understand, like, people that get paid, they get paid minimum wage to be like a PFF grader, and no experience necessary. I mean, you couldn't have a more meaningless thing. I mean, I think it's good for like number of plays and like a participation report and stuff like that. But for grading and stuff, man, no, Zen wasn't bad at all. And like you said, had he been bad, it would have manifested itself in some sort of negative way. Like you said, hitting the quarterback, sacking the quarterback, tackles for something. And we just didn't see a lot of that. So by definition, Zen couldn't have been that bad.
Well, here's the thing, Nevada. If it was that bad, and you know this because you've done sports and you know storylines and you know the whole shebang. If it was that bad and he was getting just, dog walked by these guys, don't you think the television broadcast team would have picked up on that and they would have been constantly highlighting that, and the All-American Josh Simmons is out of the game, and now it's we have this turnstile back here that's in bad shape and has no chance of, Ohio State's in big trouble now because of whatever. I mean, because again, that's what everybody was looking for. Because again, when you're Zen and you go in and you replace, the second best player on our offense behind Will Howard, like all of a sudden, man, the whole fan base is watching that position. Well, at least anyone that's got like, a lot of football intelligence, they're watching. Oh God, is it going to look like vomit with Josh Simmons not being out there? And like I said, Zen, I'm sure, like every offensive lineman in the history of mankind, there's always a couple of plays that you want back. I had those. Orlando Pace had those. There's always like one or two plays, 4 or 5 plays on a bad game where you're like, man, I could have done better here, could have done that, could have done whatever. But all in large, like again, if I thought he couldn't play, I'd tell you guys. And more importantly, the TV copy of the game would have told you guys. Because again, if he would have given up some horrific sack fumble or some blindside, whatever, like they would have gone over that ad nauseum. And the fan base, I mean, the thing about our fan base is they pay a ton of attention to when things go wrong. So when something goes wrong, like when Isaiah Prince had his really rough game in 2016 at Penn State, the entire universe, our entire fan base wanted to. It was brutal for that kid. When Harry Miller had 3 holding penalties in a game, our fan base turned on him, and it was nasty. So if Zen Mikulski would have like literally cost us the Oregon game, everyone would know it, and everybody would be super chatting about what are we going to do to fix Zen Mikulski or get him out of there or put Donnie Jackson there or Tigra or Luke Montgomery, whoever. But that wasn't the case. So again, like a 24, I'd love to know what their criteria was. Cause again, maybe I didn't watch the same film, but I thought he was, good. I didn't think he was like great, but I thought he was good. And you only need to be good. You don't need to be some dominating werewolf. You just need to be out there and pass block. And I thought he did fine at that. Schaefer Healthcare, thank you for the 5. Are you predicting a full-blown change to the aggressive 2022 style defense where we see a mix of 22 and what we have had the last 2 seasons? I'm not going to, I wouldn't change it when we're 3rd in the country and we lost. You don't have to upset the apple cart when you lose by 1 point on the road to the number 1 team in the country. Like, that's what I keep saying to people. I'm like, guys, like, that's the number 1 team in the country now. And they're good. So I just don't think you need to change that much. Like, it's not like we're that. If we were way off, then I'd say, yeah, well, let's mix it all up and try a bunch of new stuff. But guys, we were literally 1 foot away from, and again, the one thing I saw in the all 22 copy that I watched is that Ryan Day was granted a timeout at the very end of the game. The officials waving his arms, and I think again because these officials, the one thing that we found out in the last 2 weeks is these officials are very easily influenced by crowds. And so the Texas ordeal where they throw the bottles on the field and they show the thing 7 times and they say, yeah, that really wasn't pass interference. That's a terrible call. And they revoke it. Like, I'm convinced that if Oregon's fans hadn't stormed the field, they replay that and we have 1 second left and we kick a field goal and win. I'm convinced of it. Go watch where he started to slide. 2 seconds on the clock, hits the ground, and Ryan is calling timeout. And I'm sure he told that official as soon as the play's over, I want my timeout. And then you see him on the all 22 going like this. You see the official granting it, and then the Altson, again, you've got some guy who lives in Oregon who's probably has his Phil Knight Nike underwear on, running the clock, and he doesn't take his hand off the thing to stop the thing, and it goes to zeros, and then all of Altson's on the field, and the referee's got in a huddle, and they said, you know what, F it, let's just get out of here, and they did, because you can't get all the people off the field at that point. So it's my opinion. Nevada. Again, Schaefer Healthcare, thank you for the 5. He asks if you're predicting a full-blown change to the aggressive 2022 style of defense, or will we see a mix of 2022 and what we've seen the last 2 seasons. What are your thoughts?
No, I think it'll be somewhere between those two. I mean, you'll see more pressure. They're going to bring more pressure. They're making a concerted effort to upset the quarterbacks more, and so like I said, I don't think it's going to be crazy mad bomber type of stuff. But I think it'll be palpable. You'll definitely be able to tell that we're bringing more pressure and taking more risks.
Yep, totally agree. VB, thank you for the 10. Appreciate you, my friend. If you have a question, try to put that in the chat. I'll try to get it. Samuel Crockett, thank you for being a Scoop Ultra member. Thank you for the 20. I just spent my day working with crazy OSU and Michigan fans. Why the panic? Lost by 1 point to a good team. Is there any team out there that we would have a matchup problem with? I don't think so. Like I said, if you said, Kirk, if there was one team you could eliminate from us playing, I'd say Georgia. Because I do think that if their defense is on their game, they're good. But I like how we match up with Texas. I'd love to play Oregon again. I think Bama is all over the place. Again, those would all be fights. If we played any of those 5-ish teams, including Bama, because Bama still has good players and they've looked really good and they've looked really bad. So if you see them when they're really good, then you better be ready to roll. But, I just think that it's just natural to panic, I guess, like for fans that I think that they expect perfection every year. So they're let down. But in the era of the 12-team, the 12-team playoff, there's no reason to panic at all. This isn't a 4-teamer where you need to try to backdoor as the number 4 seed or whatever. 12-team playoff, man, you're going to be in this thing. So I'm excited about the rest of the season. And again, we just got to keep getting better and we're going to stay healthy. Nevada, Samuel Crockett, again, thank you for the 20. He says, I just spent my day working with crazy OSU Michigan fans. Why the panic? Lost by 1 point to a good team. Is there any team out there that we would have a matchup problem with? What are your thoughts?
Why the panic? Because that's what we do, man.
That's what we do, baby. Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what we do. We're Ohio State fans, man. When stuff goes on, we panic. We overreact. We jump on things because we're Ohio State fans. As for teams, I agree with you. If I could eliminate one team, it probably would be Georgia because they are experienced and insanely talented. But are they beatable? Absolutely. They're absolutely beatable. Look at their schedule the rest of the way, man. They're no shoe-in to make the playoff either. I'm just telling you. They have got a brutal schedule coming down the stretch. And they could lose twice more. They could easily lose twice more. So Bama's on life support. So this 12-team playoff is going to be crazy. It's unlike anything we've seen before. Just get a chip and a chair in the playoff, and then take your chances.
Yeah, like have you ever seen Scrooge, like the Ghosts of Christmas Past and the Ghosts of Christmas Future? Like, what I'm talking about, the Christmas movie Scrooge, where he goes around with the ghosts and they say this is your past and this is your future and this is your
I've never heard
little tiny thing. You've never heard of Scrooge? So
can you tell us more about? Can you tell us more about this Scrooge thing?
I wish. Well, you are Scrooge for one, so you know that. But I wish that there was a way that I could become Scrooge and take the whole swath of the fan base that is I hate the program, I hate the team, I hate Ryan Day, and I wish I could take them to go visit Florida State. I wish I could take them to go see Clemson, USC, Oklahoma, Michigan, and say, Florida State and Michigan were they were top 5 teams last year, and now look at them. That's the time you panic. Those guys would sell those guys would sell their souls to have Ohio State's problems at this point, in my opinion. That we lost by 1 to the number 1 team in the country at Alston Stadium. Like that's a different, that is as high class of a problem as you could ever imagine. That's like having to eat the second most expensive caviar in the world because they were sold out of the first most, and then you're crying about it. So I can't get into it. Like I said, it's a long season, and with the 12-team playoff, there's literally no reason to be upset. All you need to do is expect Ryan Day and these players to improve. Now, if they don't improve, then that's on them. That's their fault. But again, that's just my opinion. All right, Nevada, great show tonight. Long one tonight. Any final thoughts?
No, just I'm going to do some research on this Scrooge thing that you mentioned there to try to figure out what that whole thing's about.
You are Scrooge. Expedia, your name is Expedia McScrooge. Is your new name?
Expedia McDuck. I'm Expedia McDuck, man. Yeah, we'll see.
Expedia Bovada McDuck is your new name.
We'll see if you're
Bovada's the real Scrooge.
Oh no, they Scrooged me, man. They Scrooged me. Yeah, if you're got an account of Bovada, I'm going to tell you a quick story. You know what Bovada just did? Bovada just stole my money. Bovada literally just said, "Hey, we'll give you back the money you put in the account, but the tens of thousands of dollars that you won, we deemed it to be syndicate action. So we're not, even though it wasn't syndicate action, it was just little old me betting. We're keeping your money, and there's no appeal. So if you're betting on offshore bet on Bovada, heads
don't
up,
do it.
they can do. Don't do it. They can do it.
Don't do
they
it.
just did it. They just did it to me. But they kind of Scrooged me. They Scrooged me. So.
They are Scrooge. The ghosts of Christmas past. The past being the money that used to be yours that is now theirs. said, man, he won a bunch of bets. We don't like that he won all these bets. We're just gonna keep that money.
Exactly.
All right. Any final thoughts, Syndicate Buck? We can get out of here.
No. Just hey, man, things could be a lot worse, guys. Like Kirk said, we could be a lot of different programs. Count your blessings. The grass is not always greener, and I think we're close. So keep the faith.
Yeah, I completely agree. Let's wrap this thing up. As always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for kicking on this tonight. Happy Sunday, a great Sunday. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. Also, click that little alert bell. Sign up your friends, your family. If you want a great gift for Halloween for your spouse, have them subscribe to the Buckeye Scoops podcast on their iPhone. That'd be great. But I just appreciate you guys so very much. Again, we're trying to grow our audio platform. It has been a grind to do it, and we're really working hard to do that. So, but again, I just appreciate you guys so very much for all that you guys do. That being said, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night. Go Bucks.